Hi everybody, and welcome back to Jay Hunto's Garage. It is Memorial Day 2020, and for this year I planned on spotlighting two jets I really love, as well as a couple guys I worked with in the Air Force. These guys were particularly important to me, not only because we've stayed in touch all these years, but because of the impact they had on me as a young airman, learning how to be successful in the Air Force as an aircraft weapons system technician. These two guys are Mark Shannon and Art Boykin. I'll start with Mark Shannon. I graduated high school at 17 years old in 1985. I knew I wanted to go into the Air Force, but I was not sure what I wanted to do. They gave me like 5 job choices. None of them seemed particularly interesting, as 2 choices are always cook or a cop. So being mechanically inclined, I picked jobs that were related to aircraft maintenance. It was narrowed down to 3 I could live with, and I ended up getting aircraft armament system specialist on the F-111. I remember the day I got the letter in the mail and reading it to my parents over the phone. None of us really knew what armament meant. So I graduated high school, made it through basic training, and graduated tech school approximately 6 months later. In hindsight, I think jet engine mechanic would have served me better in the civilian world, since there are no bombs or bullets on commercial airlines. At least not yet. My first assignment was RAF Lakenheath, England. As a kid, I had never really thought about overseas travel, so this was awesome. My parents were super excited too. I'm not sure if it was because I was going to get to see England, or if it was because I was going to be out of the house for the foreseeable future. I can probably guess which one. So I'm an aspiring young airman, eager to put all my newly gained knowledge from tech school into practice on the Air Force's flagship supersonic jet that is keeping our adversaries at bay. And I heard women and English beer were plentiful, and the drinking age was, can you reach the bar? As part of the 48th Tactical Fighter Wing, I was assigned to a weapons load crew as a number 3 man. The first thing they told me was, forget everything you learned in tech school. Each crew member, the 1-man, 2-man, and 3-man, was responsible for specific tasks depending on what mission was designated for the aircraft. As an all-weather attack aircraft, there were several different scenarios the F-111 was capable of handling, so there was a lot to learn. For about the first 6 months or so, our crew chief was a great guy by the name of Greg Anderson. He taught me well and gave me a deadline to stop effing up. Looking back, this was his way of setting a goal to get my additional training completed, there was a lot, and to build confidence. It did. Greg eventually went back to the States and was replaced by Staff Sergeant Mark Shannon. Boy, did he get old. Mark was a work hard and play hard type of guy. We eventually became roommates and shared a house off base in a nearby town. We made several trips to London doing pub crawls and chatting up birds, as they say. Many of the photos and videos I still have from those days were taken while we were seeing the sights and enjoying our time away from the base. Mark went back to the States, and we lost contact for some time, as there was no social media then or the internet, so it was much more difficult to stay connected. Eventually, I finished my 2-year tour in England and went to my next assignment at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. This is where I met Staff Sergeant Art Boykin. Art was another excellent weapons load crew chief that I learned a great deal from and became great friends with. Art eventually moved on to become a weapons loading evaluator, and I eventually moved on to my dream job in what we called the back shop. This is where the A-10 weapons systems were removed from the jet and brought in for service. My favorite part of all that was tearing down, inspecting, and reassembling the gun system. The worst part was the ammunition loader. Assembling the ammo chutes was the most tedious job ever. I was there for 8 years total and worked on A-10s, OA-37s, and OV-10s. In my 11 years in the Air Force, I had opportunities I wouldn't otherwise have had and made lasting friendships that endure to this day, even some as far back as basic training and tech school. I've always found that these memories and experiences never leave me and are and always will be a part of me, as I suspect it is for most in the military. So for Memorial Day, honor our fallen brothers and sisters in arms and their families as well, as they are the most affected when a service member is lost. So I put my hobby to good use, and I built this F-111 model kit to send to Mark for his 60th birthday. Happy birthday, Mark. So for Art Boykin, I've got this A10 that I'd like him to have just as a reminder of, and is in great appreciation for his friendship. Him and his wife are absolutely wonderful people, and you just don't come across people like that very often. So for Art, this goes to him. As a matter of fact, it's already boxed up and it's going to be shipped out tomorrow. Now, a quick word about the F-111. The F-111 was an all-weather attack aircraft which first flew on December 21st, 1964. It featured variable geometry wings, an internal weapons bay, and a cockpit with side-by-side seating, which was part of an escaped crew capsule. The wing sweep varied between 16 degrees and 72.5 degrees, full forward to full aft. The Air Force variants were retired in the 1990s, with the F-111Fs in 96 and EF-111s in 98. The F-111 was replaced in the Air Force service by the F-15E Strike Eagle for medium-range precision strike missions, while the supersonic bomber role has been assumed by the B-1B Lancer. The RAAF was the last operator in the F-111, which is in Australia, with its aircraft serving until December 2010. On April 14, 1986, 18 F-111s and approximately 25 Navy aircraft conducted airstrikes against Libya under Operation El Dorado Canyon. That does not include tankers. The 18 F-111s of the 48th Attack Fighter Wing and the 20th Tactical Fighter Wing flew what turned out to be the longest fighter combat mission in history. I actually loaded the ordnance that went down there on those jets. The round-trip flight between RAF Lakenheath and RAF Upper Hayford and Libya of 6,400 miles spanned 13 hours. Only one F-111 was lost. We can remember those pilots today. F-111s participated in the Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm in 1991. During Desert Storm, F-111Fs completed 3.2 successful strike missions for every unsuccessful one, better than any other U.S. strike aircraft used in the operation. The group of 66 F-111Fs dropped almost 80% of the war's laser-guided bombs, including the GBU-15 and the penetrating bunker buster GBU-28. 18 F-111Es were also deployed during the operation. The F-111s were credited with destroying more than 1,500 Iraqi tanks and armored vehicles. Their use in the anti-armor role was dubbed tank plinking. Production ended in 1976 after 563 F-111 aircraft were built.